So I saw this headline flash today, and I literally wanted to read the whole thing with you because that's what it's about. It's about reading. This was the headline from the Washington Post, and it was everywhere. Why so few Americans read for pleasure? And then the subtitle, Leisure Reading Among U.S. Adults 15 and older has dropped 40% in the past 20 years, according to researchers. And this is just coming out on August 20th, 2025. My first reaction to this stuff is this is one of the big explanations of why someone like Donald Trump won in the USA. And you need to be honest about this stuff. You could argue Fox News is another big reason, but just simply people not reading, because a lot of stuff that we see happening with Trump was all predicted ahead of time. We know, and I talked about it on the channel, and I read stuff and I show you guys stuff. But I completely understand. Even though we have a great community and I enjoy hanging out with you, we're not representing everyone in the world, right? Some people prefer not to read, and such. So why? And I'm actually quite curious what the reasons they give. I have my hunches, but let's see what it says. Fewer Americans than ever before are reading for pleasure. Okay. According to a new study released Wednesday, declining 40% in the past 20 years. Only 16% of Americans age 15 and over read for leisure every day in 2023. That's very few, actually. Only 16% age 15 and over read for pleasure every day, uh, or leisure, to use the right word. According to a study from researchers at the University of Florida and University College London, so this is a joint study here, that was published Wednesday in the journal iScience, compared with 28% of Americans in 2003, right? So these are how many Americans over age 15 will read every day for leisure. So it dropped from 28% of Americans would do that in 2003. Now it's only at 16%. So it's actually a really, really big drop. The new findings come as Americans' attention spans and print book sales are in decline. And I think we both know all this. If you guys probably know this stuff already. And artificial intelligence technology is aiming to summarize knowledge as quickly as possible. And why are we so short on time? Is an interesting question out there. There's many explanations you could argue. You could say, well, because lots of other stuff, I could do better than reading. I'm sure some people make that case. Or there's lots of stuff on streaming, or I have to work 3 jobs to keep up with the current economy. I think that's a fair thing. People could say that, because perfectly frank with you guys, I watch YouTube the same way that you do. And for me, I actually watch it on the treadmill. It's actually really quite useful. Or if you're traveling in the subway, driving a car, those kind of things. And it's good to have companionship along the way, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. And if you're watching this and on the treadmill or listening on the subway, or while you're driving a car, you can let me know. But this is certainly an issue with USA. Americans' attention spans are down. While there's evidence that the trend began in the 1940s, okay, talking about people reading less, this most recent decline in reading for pleasure is significant. Jill Sankey, co-director of the EpiArch lab at the University of Florida, said in a news release. Okay, so why is significant? The study, which was based on time use data from nearly 240,000 Americans, so that's a pretty big sample size, between 2003 and 2023, excluded 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic, because that's kind of an outlier, year, so it's just not necessarily include that. Found that time adults spent reading to children did not drop during that period. Okay, so that's the thing. But only a small portion of participants, 2%, read to kids every day. Wow. Wow, I didn't realize it was that small. Only a small portion of participants, 2%, read to kids every day. And if you don't know, Yage and I right now, we're trying to have a kid, and this is something like literally we talk about. I say, if we end up having a child, I'm going to read to my kid every day. Absolutely, 100%. And this is actually really disturbing, this one right here. I don't know, guys. You tell me. This is sort of why I always say, for this kind of stuff, this is why you have discussions and you have a community, right? Why you get other people's opinion. When you were a kid, did someone read to you? Did you like that? Today, people that that say have kids, are they reading to kids every day? Do you value that kind of time that you spend with your with your kids. This is big right here. And, I'm just reacting to this. If you want a better world, right, you can't control everything in the world, be honest with you. But you can set a good example for young people around you. And if they see parents are reading and you're reading to kids, I mean, everything improves. And I understand, guys. I completely understand, right? You have busy schedules, I guess. You're busy with things. But, for those of you who prioritize things, you put what you like, you show your kids what's important. I'm a big believer in reading. I can't stress enough. That's literally, what I'm doing with you guys right now, reading and conversation and honesty, all this kind of stuff. And it changes the world immensely when you read. Just for example, read my book. I put a link down below if you want to check it out. But that's what we're talking about here. As a co-investigator in the study, but also as a mother and grandmother, and as a person, I think how little people are reading with children and to children is very concerning. I just read that, like, we have this both same concern. Sonki said in a phone interview, adding that the lack of reading can make it harder for children to succeed at school, right? The new research, along with other recent surveys, shows a widening gap when it comes to reading in America, where people with less education are not as likely to read as with people with higher education levels. And I think we already know that kind of thing. And it's frustrating. These conversations are so frustrating to talk with Americans because people get really upset when you bring up the importance of education. And that shows you like how bad the situation is in the USA. I think you guys already know this stuff. I'm just being honest with you about these things. It's very, very frustrating to talk to Americans about reading and education because they're like, oh no, I don't need education. I don't need to read. People will say that in the USA, and it's like, oh my God. It's like, and then you wonder why Trump won. I mean, it's so frustrating. Surveys from the polling company YouGov, for example, found that 46% of Americans read no books in 2023. In that group of non-readers, 56% of them lacked a college degree, while 27% had graduated from college. So basically just showing that people don't read. And all these numbers are going to kind of saying the same thing. In the University of Florida and University College London analysis, participants with college degrees in 2023 were nearly 3 times more likely to read for pleasure daily than those with a high school degree or less. The study also found racial, economic, gender differences in reading habits. Women, white participants, and those with higher incomes were more likely to spend time reading each day, the study found, while men, Black participants, and those with lower incomes engaged in less reading for pleasure. And it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to divide yourselves out like this. I write about this stuff in my book. I used to go to the library constantly. I didn't have a lot of money when I was a kid, but you know what? The library is free. The library is free. And the library is something we should talk about more on the channel. It's, I talk about transportation, I talk about healthcare. Fund your libraries, right? And this should be cities across the nation. You could talk about it. Schools, fund the libraries in schools. Like this is the kind of stuff that you want to invest in your future. And actually, I get upset. I mean, I knew it was bad in USA, but I didn't know especially it was going this direction. And I think and honestly, that's a shock. The shocking number of the, was it 2% of people read their kids every day? That's really low. It's really low. And it doesn't have to be like all you got to do is prioritize your kids. I'm telling you, go to the library, get some books. It doesn't cost money to go to the library, and even just 20 minutes with your kid every night and read, right? Experience that, and it doesn't have to be anything too complicated. Just read a story with them and spend time with your kids. Sonki said that addressing these racial and socioeconomic disparities could also help improve health outcomes. Completely agree. Since leisure reading is linked to reduced stress and anxiety and improved overall social well-being. Engaging in the arts, including reading for pleasure, is, quote, low-hanging fruit for health that people don't associate with health as much as we do. She said, adding that increasing access to libraries and access to internet could help. It's so crazy. We're definitely on the same page. I don't know who this Sonki person is, but we're on the same page. I'm just reading this for the first time and reacting the same way. I mean, this, yeah. I know I'm not alone. I know if you're watching this channel and you probably feel the same way that, making the world a better place through the youth is the way to go. It's just a reality. Some people you're not going to be able to change. I understand that. I understand more than you know. Again, I write about this stuff in my book. It's because I really understand. And sometimes it's frustrating for me on the channel when people just basically ask the most really basic questions of me, when like literally all you have to do is Google me or click the link down below kind of stuff. Like it's like literally my book's right there, and you can see the whole intro, stuff like that. I mention that is because this sort of just really basic stuff is sorely lacking in USA. It's obvious, and it's sad. And this is just, I know I'm kind of ragging a bit on education right now because, or lack thereof, I should say. It's not that I hate education. Actually, I want everyone to read to your kids. I think that's probably the most shocking one here. Reading is going down. It explains everything about the Trump people. It's like this. When we do this stuff every day, like I literally just watch what people say. I read everything and I try to share it with you, right? And I can tell when other channels are untruthful. And it can be the left side, the right side, middle, whatever. I can tell because if you read all the stuff and you know kind of what they're saying, like you'll know when someone's not telling the truth. And reading, like say, just read. Here's a really great way to protect yourself. Read a contract, right? Read the fine print, that kind of stuff. Like people will take advantage of you when you don't read stuff. Reading is so crucial for success. Just to understand the world around you. It's the importance of words and word choice. Um, you know, even the biggest readers are abandoning books. Okay, average time spent reading for personal interest in a given day. So I guess the way you would read this is everything's going down, be it for men, women, everyone all together. It looks like the average is like, boy, maybe 20, 30 minutes, I guess is what we're kind of looking at. 75 and older is the ones who read the most, but it says here it looks like 15 24 may be increasing a bit because that's the one that's like a blue arrow going up, but pretty much everyone is going down, and it's looks like by age. So the generation, and I can tell you this, I know the demographics of those you who watch my channel, and it's actually skews quite old. I think so I'm 50 if you guys don't know, so I'm right in the middle. And for those of you who are older than me watching the channel, you make up like 30-40% of the channel. So, many of you are probably in these categories where you are still reading. I'm telling you guys, libraries are great. And to be fair, you don't even have to go to the library these days. You can actually read all sorts of stuff on the internet. Is widely available for free. I read stuff constantly and share stuff with you guys as well. I'm still in shock as we go through this stuff on the children thing. This is by education, how much time people spend reading. This is also by race, and I know this gets into really sensitive topics for people. I'm just showing you the data, let you look at it for yourself. It's just data, right? It's just data. And again, people get upset, and it's hard to talk about Americans with this kind of stuff. While the study didn't address the reasons for the drop in time spent reading, Sonke said, "We do know that technology and digital media are competing for our time." Yes, I would agree. As a result, America's attention spans have declined starkly, which can also affect people's reading habits. These days, kids, it's even worse. Like, for example, my videos on YouTube, like just having a conversation, for some people, just like, oh, Chris, I just want a 1-minute TikTok video, and I want you dancing, and I want more screaming, I want more anger, that kind of stuff. So there's people out there like that. And I think, unfortunately, the younger you go, the more it's going to be like that. So, man, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I mean, are we all going to be doing like 10-second things, and kids are going to be like essentially, like, how can I say, have video screens all over the place, and their attention's like can't focus on anything whatsoever. And I guess we're all going to have AI boyfriends and girlfriends. Is that the future that we're going to? As a result, Americans' attention spans have just declined starkly, which can also affect people's reading habits. Sure. University of California, Irvine, Professor Emerita Gloria Mark, who studies humans' interactions with computers, said in a phone interview that people's attention span while looking at screens averaged 2.5 minutes in 2004, later falling to an average of 47 seconds in 2016. Oh my God. It's funny. And if you're watching the video this far, you're probably laughing too, because you Your attention span is much higher than the regular average person. So I'll say this: if you've made it this far in the video, we're just literally just hitting around like talking about this stuff, you are, likely 10 to 15 times have greater attention span than the average person. So pat yourself on the back there. I know we're setting a very low bar in this world, but I mean, this is the reality of how nuts it is out there. And this stuff right here explains a lot of why Trump won. Explains a lot of why. We'll just say this: some channels on YouTube are popular the way they are, and and the people there talk like really stupid. You know how they talk. Hi guys, blah 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 blah, woo woo woo, right? And that's basically idiocracy. That's most of the internet is that stuff. And when I ever see this stuff, like the popular stuff on YouTube, I'm just like, who the heck is watching this crap? I mean, I just shake my head, and then when I read this, and I'm like, yep, okay, I get it, And a positive note, if you want to separate yourself, then the out there, the masses who can't concentrate on anything, read. You will concentrate, focus, right? Shut out all that noise. You will beat like 99% of the population out there these days. I promise you. And again, I say read my book again because this is the kind of stuff that I cover. You don't want to be like everyone else. I'm telling you guys, you can see it. You can see it in the numbers. You can see it in the stuff. 47-second attention span, 2016. So now it's what, 30 seconds people can concentrate and that's it. And then you add on top all the unhealthy food in USA. I mean, and that definitely has a focus. That's like the sugar and all that stuff that people are eating in USA. You can kind of see where this is going. Mark, who's in the early stages of writing a book about how technology is changing people's cognitive abilities, okay, be able to think here, reports that many of her interview subjects have told her that they're, quote, just able to read a very short passage before they put down a book. Oh, God. Some university professors have started assigning passages rather than full books. Oh, jeez. She added, because students are unable to read entire volumes. Shake my head. What can you do? And just for reference, when I was in college and I took school very seriously, like every class was a book a week. So you take, 4 or 5 classes, you're reading 4 to 5 books a week, and oftentimes much more than that. And so it's hard to explain to people like how much when you read and can, learn so much, like how it really focuses your mind much better. Your mind is a muscle and you got to use it. And the same way that, if you want to get good at running marathons, you run marathons and in your body gets attuned to that the same way that you read and your mind gets attuned to that. It's focus. We're in this culture where we are kind of pushed to consume as much content as possible, okay? Said Mark, who is an author of Attention Span, a groundbreaking way to restore balance, happiness, and productivity. She added that she knows a lot of people who consume audio or video, okay? Content are 2 or 3 times normal speed to try and keep up. Yeah, see, the problem is when people are consuming but not critically thinking. And when I, read something or when I watch something, I actually pause and sit and think about it and make sure I understand what it is. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. They just think I just have to read the words and it'll magically absorb in your head. No, make sure you read something to make sure you understand it. If you don't, read it again. That's the secret. It's not that hard, actually. Not that hard in terms of like the secret. That's what reading is all about. If you don't know what the word is, look it up. That's how you learn. Sonki, who reads for pleasure every day, acknowledges that even she isn't immune from being overwhelmed by the content. She's in the middle of reading Middlemarch, George Eliot's 8-novel book examining the life in the 19th century. It's great, but it's also a slog, okay? When she was midway through the second book, Snooki asked ChatGPT, right? Sure, she's being honest here, to summarize what she'd read so far, taking care to tell OpenAI's popular chatbot exactly where she was in her reading, to tell like which page and which chapter, I guess, and it'll summarize. That's pretty funny. It can absolutely be useful for enhancing reading as well as skipping reading, as Sanke said before, adding that she'll keep plowing through Middlemarch and she'll continue using ChatGPT as a reading comprehension aid. I would do it again, the reading researcher said. So yeah, it's pretty funny. So it is true, yes, OpenAI is changing the way that we interact with stuff, but how about this? Here's a good way to describe things to people. So you could totally read a 2-sentence paragraph or whatever of what a book is, but when you read something for yourself and you see language, it's not just books, articles. Like for example, we just went through this article together. And I could just tell you quickly, okay, 40% drop in the last 20 years of reading. Okay, so that is certainly true. That is the key, part of this thing here. But then we would have missed about the kids in the 2%. We would have missed some of the personal stories that I share with you. We would have missed your opportunity to share comments with us. Like it's kind of like if you want to go over to my vlog channel, my wife and I were just at the beach today. And, yeah, you could watch a 10-second version of us at the beach and, we play in the water, we eat some food, sure. But it's very different if you actually allow yourself to experience something and sort of take time to really let it soak in. I think that's a good way to talk about it and be thoughtful about said things. And now sometimes, people say they like my channel because I'm calm, I guess. For me, for me, as normal, I just like, someone says something and I think, okay, let me think about that for a second. And before I respond, I don't, have to agree or disagree with someone immediately and need that instant take. I guess that's sort of the world that we're in. Everyone wants that instant take. But, like I said, first I tell you my first reaction for the TikTok, part where when I saw the headline, I was like, okay, that definitely explains why Trump won. And then I was actually curious. I wanted to see the details and I wanted to go through this with you. And, this was gonna stick with me for the next week or so, honestly, as I start to process what this all means, and I read all of your comments every single day. I really do, and that's how I know what's on your guys' mind, and I do want you guys to share what's on your mind on this one because I think this is actually a really important thing that don't sleep on some of this stuff. Um, and this is something that unfortunately I can't control this. This is where the culture is going. People aren't going to read anymore. People can't think anymore, and people are going to have very, very short attention spans. And my suggestion or advice is just make sure you surround yourself with people who aren't that, because they will drag you down with them. And that's one of the things, I guess, that I just keep mentioning my book because it's all about reading. Is if you want to avoid being like everyone else, don't hang out with everyone else. That's a really good way to put it. Because everyone else is basically mediocre. That's the reality, right? Yeah, the definition of average or middle is like that. So that's my thoughts on this stuff. I want to hear yours, and I catch you on the next video.